As per usual, if you guess the name of that song, I will give you a shout out so you can post that in the chat or in the comments later. I'm just trying to get people on their toes with their music. First off, before I get into any topics, I want to point out immediately that if you go up in the corner, you can go vote in the poll. You don't have to know what it's about. It is about the stock market I will be talking about later, but it's just four options: red, yellow, green, and blue. And if you vote in that, then it will help fluctuate the stock market. So if you want to know what that means, stick around for the stock market update at the end of the stream. But until then, I will be talking about my AI. So I have not done too much in terms of coding the fishbowl neural network that I have been talking about. I've begun structuring the node class, and I've been trying to work through the process of how I will structure this AI. But in the process of doing so, I have come up with a couple new ideas. Now, I will preface this by saying I have not done too much research in terms of what structures are available and are being currently researched by other people. So if this is something that is being researched by someone else, I want to know about it. So if you have a research paper or some sort of article that you can link me, please feel free to leave that in the comments or to send it to me in any way possible. I am interested in reading up on what other people have done in this field. But as for now, I have not done much research, so all of this has been what I have thought of on my own without much interference from outside resources. So I'm going to switch the screen over here because I have a couple pictures that I drew. I wanted to get that drawn. So actually, we're going to go with the Q&A background. It looks a little bit more interesting. So I wanted to get these drawn ahead of time just so I wouldn't be squirming on stream and we could probably be a little bit more efficient with this. So I have this new idea, new as in new for me, idea for how to take on the task of creating a possible AGI, which stands for Artificial General Intelligence. Now, an artificial general intelligence is something that can take on many different tasks and be successful at learning those tasks while still not necessarily losing the ability to do old tasks. So in the previous video, which I will link up in the corner once this is uploaded later, in the previous video, I talked about how I want to create an AI that will have a data structure or a node structure so that it can use previous knowledge in order to try and complete new tasks. So this is something that I feel like would be very advantageous for an artificial general intelligence because, say, an artificial general intelligence learns how to move forward and then moves how to learn sideways. Well, maybe the next task is to move diagonally. It already knows how to move forward and sideways. Perhaps it can do both of those at the same time. So that analogy may not be applicable to every single like robot or anything like that, but that's the general idea: is that we can take previous tasks and possibly add them together or make slight adjustments to them for the given task, so that the previous knowledge is used and we can be more efficient in the learning process. So previously I mentioned that I wanted to create sort of not necessarily a normal neural network where there is a structured matrix of nodes and weights, but with this I want to have sort of a randomized, evolutionarily created structure of nodes. So there can be there can be connections between any nodes, as but so there will be inputs, there will be outputs, and in the middle there's going to be a sea of nodes that have connections between them based off of what is going to get the job done. And this will be slowly getting better through an evolutionary process where it will randomly create connections and randomly destroy connections if necessary and randomly create new nodes. So these weights will be the weights that are connecting the nodes together will be adjusted through a process of steepest descent optimization, which is quite common with deep neural nets. But this the process that I am going to be using in order to achieve this is by having random connections, random mutations, I guess you could say, um, occurring within each generation, and then those mutations will be tested to see if they benefit the system. So perhaps a new connection could be formed, and then over the process of a few repetitions, it will be optimized to see if it's heading in the right direction. This is important to me because I feel like if you just make a new adjustment and don't give it the chance to optimize, then you don't really know that it is the better path. Perhaps originally trying to use the new path is going to cause some problems, but as it optimizes, it is a stronger structure altogether. So that is the idea for how the AI will work. But there is a different idea that is somewhat alluded to by this picture that I want to establish now, because I think that is how I'm going to actually set up the AI. So usually with a neural network, the AI can process information throughout the entire neural network and get a complete set of outputs in every tick of time, I guess, in the program. Now, I don't feel that this is necessarily realistic, and it may be advantageous to be able to compute everything at one point in time, but there is a problem with the structure that I am attempting to set up, and that is the possibility of infinite loops. So because there are possibilities of connections being randomly made between nodes, there could be a situation where there is a loop of nodes that are connected together, and those nodes will infinitely cycle through. So if the AI is attempting to process every single connection in every single tick, it will never finish that in the time. It will literally never finish that because there's no end to it. This is a big no-no in programming because we don't want things to go on forever. We want to get to the answer. So my solution for this process is to have a step-based process. So here we have our inputs, and I'm hoping, let me click on this and you should be able to see my mouse. There we go. So we have our inputs here, and they're not colored or anything. We're going to ignore the colors for a second. And so what I'm saying is that each node that is currently being looked at will propagate onto the next level. But it will only propagate onto the next level, and then it will move on to the next tick. So we have these nodes, right? And they will go on to their next connection. So these three would move on to this one, and this one would be processed, and this one will move on to this one, and this one would be processed. So in the next step, this node right here and this node right here would be processed. So once we get around to processing again, this node right here and this node right here would be processed. And so this one only has one output. It would move to here. So then we'd get rid of this guy, and then this guy only has one output, and it would move to here. So now you can see that there is two signals that are moving through the system. So what the benefit of this is that the AI can set up these infinite loops, and they could possibly be an asset to the system. Because, so what I've put up here is a possible loop arrangement where the AI can send a signal through, and it will continuously put out outputs, assuming that this node fires. So I should probably explain what I mean by firing. So with normal neural networks, usually in the middle of the neural network, there is no adjustment of data other than weights. So the weights can create whatever numbers they want when they go to each node, and those nodes will propagate those numbers through with more weights to the next level. With my system, I'm planning to have a system where each node has its value plugged into a sigmoid function, so it's turned into a probability. And if that probability is greater than 50%, then it will consider that a 1. This is something that I did with the outputs of my AI in the Sell Me Something game. because I wanted there to be a specific condition for a 1 and a specific condition for a 0. That would mean that if it were a 1, it would do whatever that slot was associated with, so perhaps move right. And if it were a 0, it would not do that. So I'm doing the same here with these outputs, but I'm also applying that to all of the nodes in the middle. And so the reason for that is that if it is a 0, the node will not fire. That means it will not have to propagate, and this can save some processing time, because just simply adding 0 to the next level would do nothing, but it would take time in order to do that, and time is something that is very valuable in QuickTime events. So if these values coming in add up to a value when plugged into a sigmoid function that is over 50%, it will consider this a 1, and this node will propagate on to the next level. So what I mean by propagate is that it has weights that are associated with each connection, and those weights will be used as the inputs for the next node that it moves to. So what can happen is that we can turn on and turn off certain processes. There's also an important idea that even if these inputs are not still feeding numbers in that will turn on this node, this loop has the capability of being continuous without inputs tampering with this. So perhaps this could be something where something triggers an event, and the AI will decide to move constantly in one direction until something else happens. This is something that I feel is a very advantageous possibility in terms of a survival type AI, because it will allow it to establish events as opposed to just simply analyzing the current situation and making a slight adjustment based off of whatever situation it's in. That the latter case takes a lot of processing and can actually be somewhat limited, because if you want the AI to be able to use past information, you have to save that somewhere. With this structure, the AI can save that information itself by creating some sort of loop system that is constantly spitting out information based off of a previous event, and it can put a 1 in the slots of the outputs that are necessary for circumstances that occur after those events. So perhaps an enemy enters the screen. If we're talking about Jeffrey, my project earlier, which I do plan on eventually implementing this system with. If we're talking about Jeffrey, if perhaps an enemy enters the screen, then Jeffrey could know to run in the opposite direction and continue running in the opposite direction until he is in a safe environment where the new event would be triggered and that running away would be stopped. Now, these systems require a lot of complex structuring, but with the evolutionary system, there is the possibility of anything being created. So I also wrote down this other structure that I just thought would be possible. And one thing I want to point out is that if you want to mess around with this and think up possible ways that the AI could use this structure in order to create programming circumstances, please be my guest. And if you have any pictures, please send them to me, and I will probably post them on my Facebook. Or I have a Reddit page set up, but not a lot of people go on that. But if you are interested in that, I will start using that. So here I have a conditional statement. So this is sometimes called a Boolean, but basically what this would be is an and or an or. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this node right here to fire. And so there could be a circumstance where these two nodes add up together in order to make this node fire, but on their own, they do not. The node does not fire. This would be an and. Sorry, I'm bad at underlining with the mouse. And so that would be an and. If you know how coding works, you can have an if statement, and the if statement only propagates through that portion of the code if both circumstances are true. And so that's what this would have. That's what this would reflect. Would be two circumstances that need to be true, or even more. There could be four. There could be 100 circumstances that need to be true in order for this to fire. I also considered the possibility of an or statement, because with this, it could be possible that either of these nodes previous are enough to fire this node. So this would be an or, and this would be somewhat like this statement here. So this guy right here in this loop, this would be an or node, because this node right here can fire this node, and this node right here can fire this node, continuing the loop. So that would be an or. And I thought about the possibility of an exclusive or, which means that this node only fires if one of the two nodes here is firing. But I think that would need a little bit more complex of a structure, and I didn't necessarily have the time to work that out. But if you want to work that out, once again, please send me any pictures, and I will be gracious of that, because I just think that working out how the AI can use the assets available is beneficial in terms of optimizing the actual system itself. So this is pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I don't want to go too long on just this topic, but this is the general structure that I want to take for making my AI in the days to come. So I do plan on programming this significantly more. I know that next week I do have 2 tests that I have to study for, so I will be working on that probably a little bit more than my coding. But after that is spring break, so I do have a large portion of time where I will be working on this project. So that is pretty much all I want to say on the artificial intelligence update. If you have any questions, recommendations, publications that you want me to read, please feel free to leave those in the chat, or to send them to me in any way possible. But for now, I'm going to be moving on to the second section of today's stream, which is the stock market update. So we're going to be switching the screen over here, and I actually need to grab my calculator so that we can get a random number. So I will be running to get that in a second. Okay, so we're here with the stock market update, and while I'm getting this random number generator set up, we can look over the current market. So we have Megan sitting at the top. Now, she was dethroned for a little bit with the large rise in yellow, but there was a recent springback of the green stock, which she put a large investment into, and that helped her to reach a new peak in her assets. Now, everybody else has stayed pretty even, including even Steven, although there have been slight increases just because the market continually goes up for some reason, even though this is completely random. But we are going to be updating the stock market. So I realized that I never hit new market here, so we'll have to do that, and we'll have to zero out that guy, and everything should be the same here. It is. And the historic data is all up to date. So we're going to start plugging in these numbers. So I did look over the vote count, and the reason that I wanted to point out at the start of this video that people should go vote in the corner, and if you haven't done that now, please do so, is that we were actually pretty weak on the turnout in the voting poll. I'm actually going to go check out to see if there's been any last-minute voters in this week's poll, just to make sure that there isn't too much skewing in the market. So I'm going to check this out, and hopefully there's no sound that's playing through. Nope, it is exactly how it was previous to the stream, so we will be going with those numbers. So I am going to just start typing these in, and we went with blue last time, so we'll go back with red. Red received a 0% of the vote. Yellow received a 50% of the vote. Green received a 50% of the vote. And blue received a 0% of the vote. Now, you may be asking how many people voted. There were 2 people who voted, and so that is why we are seeing these numbers. And so I'm hoping that with my repeated mentioning of the fact that you can go vote up in the corner in the little eye icon, people will get the message and vote on this video when they're watching it. So we have these values as our changes, and I'm going to click the market factor. Are you kidding me? Okay, so we have a 0 as the market factor. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be complaining because this is to my benefit, but at the same time, it is a little uncanny that these numbers are popping up. You can read the code there. It says random integer between 0 and 50, and we got 0. So that is what we're looking at. Yellow has taken a large leap, as well as green. So we're going to hit new market. We don't have to zero out the market factor. We don't have to worry about that. And we can see that Megan has now jumped to a whopping lead of 480,618 over my 398,226. Now, this may be a point in time. Well, actually, nobody went down this week, so I don't know that I would necessarily want to invest in anything, because I was kind of waiting for something to be low in the market, but the market is just so high right now that I may want to just stick around with what I have in the market. Now, my one problem is I have a lot in my assets that I would like to invest, but I can't really invest that because everything is just so expensive right now. I could perhaps invest a little bit in red, just for the sake that it is the cheapest at the moment, but it is still over its original price of 100 Jonos. So I don't know if that's necessarily the best investment. But I think I'll have to hold out for now, unless I want to sell out in a certain stock. But I think the best option would be to stay where I'm at. Actually, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. The market just keeps going up. It's weird, but I don't know. I won't complain. I think I'm gonna stay where I'm at. If you want, we should probably add in the new market history. So we have a 118 because red did not change, and then 215, 198. 215, 198, and then blue has not changed as well, so we can update that, and you can see green and yellow have gone insanely up, from green's sort of flatlining and yellow's sort of spastic upwards trend. Blue and red have literally flatlined because they did not change it at all. And that is what we are looking at. So that's all I have for the stock market update. One final time, I will mention that up in the top, I believe that is your right corner of the screen, there is an eye icon which you can click on and vote. There should be a poll with 4 options that are the color stocks of the stock market you are seeing here. But in that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will be most likely streaming Saturday night. I do not know what topic I will be streaming, but I am talking with another YouTuber about possibly coming onto the stream and talking a little bit. It might be an art topic, so you have that to look forward to. But until then, I am signing off, so goodbye.